and say thank you first off for coming to our webinar on what are people saying about your practice. Today we have a special guest, very special guest, Debbie Harris. She's been a delight having done some webinars for us in the past on social media compliance for your practice, and I believe this is going to be a very insightful webinar for you guys. Keep in mind that if for any reason you need to leave a little bit early, we will be recording this webinar, and we're going to go ahead and send an email with the recording to anyone that has registered. If you have any colleagues that did register but they couldn't make it, also keep in mind that they will get an email as well with the recorded webinar itself. Okay. We will have a question and answer module towards the end. We will try to leave at least a good 15 minutes or so for that. And if you do have any questions in the meantime, I will make sure to hold on to those until we get towards the end when we have our Q&A section, and then Debbie will be the one to answer the questions. So Debbie Harris is the president and founder of DoWeComply.com, a performance intermedia LLC company. She has a master's degree in social media compliance and the law from Regis University, graduating summa cum laude. Debbie is also an attorney, consultant, and expert witness on social media compliance and the law, and has been published in the Nevada Lawyer. Debbie is a subject matter expert speaker here for iMatrix on practice-based social media, and her company, Performance Intermedia LLC, offers LinkedIn profile optimization and social media platform consulting with a focus on practice-based businesses. She was also published in Moms in Business in December of 2012, writing about the importance of LinkedIn for professional women. And she also has a book in progress called An American Paradox, Social Media and Privacy. So keep a lookout for that. So I want to go ahead and introduce her here, and she will be presenting. And again, Debbie, thank you for being here presenting this for us. And I will let you take it away.
Thanks, Mike. I appreciate it. If anybody can't hear me, type a message in so that we know. Welcome, everybody. Good morning or good afternoon, and thank you for joining us. Let's get started. What are people saying about your practice? Oh, it always does this. Give me one moment. It's just, aha. Well, Mike was kind enough to talk about me. This is a little bit about iMatrix. I've been working with them now for about 2 years, and the reason I work with iMatrix doing these webinars for educational purposes is because I just think they operate with the highest integrity and highest level of service for their clients, and then again for my clients as well. And you heard him talk about this, so we can skip right over that. Do we comply? The things that we do. And just to be on the safe side here, I am not an attorney, and I do stress that. So anything we do here, whether it's a policy or a release, which we'll talk about, I always suggest that you do have it at least reviewed by an attorney before finalizing anything. We're going to talk about reviews and testimonials. Do you know what people are saying? We're going to talk about positive and negative reviews, educating your patients, release forms. We're going to talk about the new Facebook graph search a little bit, which you all should have now, and why check-ins are so important, blogging, and then, of course, the ultimate question, how do we separate all this from our personal life, yet have it effective for our professional life? Most of you know all this already. I'm not going to read this screen for you, but technology is changing every nanosecond. Facebook is changing, it seems, almost weekly. And things that are in one place one week are not there the next week, or something new, or they've changed their privacy settings. It does get overwhelming and it does get confusing, which is why I appreciate a company like iMatrix bringing you this education on a regular basis. Social media, as you probably know by now, it's not a fad. It is absolutely essential for your practice that you get involved with social media. You will reach people, and you will affect your search engine optimization. We know that more and more people are using smartphones. That is going to continue to grow. I always say those devices will do everything but make us coffee pretty soon, and that seems to be the way things are going. So let's move right into it. Reviews and testimonials. We know now that reviews and testimonials absolutely make a difference to people. If you remember that advertising is no longer a one-way conversation. It's no longer a monologue. it's a two-way conversation now. People want to see recommendations. They want to give recommendations. And as you can see here, 70% trust consumer opinions posted online. That means whether they know the person or not, they are trusting those opinions. And of course, 92% from people that they know, and social media gives you the opportunity for people to get testimonials right from people that they know. Just a little bit of semantics here and lingo, because these things get all muddled up. We're going to talk about reviews, and we're going to separate that from testimonials. Testimonials on the actual social media platforms themselves versus reviews on some of the review sites. So just that and if I forget and mix up the lingo, I hope you guys will stay on track with me there. Is your practice on Google Plus and Yelp? Very important that you make sure that you are there. And I know, Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe Google and Yahoo, you guys do take care of for your clients?
Yes.
And
that is
making
true.
sure
Google,
that,
Yahoo, and Bing.
Yahoo, excellent. So that your address is correct and everything else is correct when people want to contact you, and obviously when they're searching for you. So extremely important, and you know that people use Yelp for reviews. They also use Angie's List. And you can see here that Angie's List last year was getting over 120,000 reviews per month. This is a paid-for system versus the free ones, but you know, this was started by a woman named Angie because people were asking her all the time for recommendations, and of course it's grown into Angie's List and one of the most highly respected resources for reviews that people will use. So keep that in mind as well. And we have our search engines, and we just mentioned them, and it's clear here to check on MSN. It's always good periodically to check and make sure your information is correct. And I will tell you right off the bat, Google's, I mean, it's great that iMatrix does this because Google is not very easy to work with when you're trying to change things. I tried for 2 years to change a former client's address on Google, and all they kept doing was sending me letters telling me that they were working on it. So again, the advantage of using a company like iMatrix to make sure that everything is okay for you. And no question that Google is still where people go most of the time. So when it comes to search, Google is still king. Now, one of the things in your practice is, are you actually asking people for a review? You know, the out of sight, out of mind. Most people want to give reviews and want to give testimonials, but they walk out of your office and, you know, they walk out of your office. And unless they're sitting there and doing it at that moment on a tablet or a smartphone, they don't necessarily think about it and go back. I mean, you yourself, how many times have you checked out somewhere at a retail store or a grocery store, and they hand you the slip and they say, hey, if you go online and take the survey when you get home, you'll get a free coffee or a free bagel or whatever the case may be. And how many times do you actually go back and do that? I do it about once every 5 times. It just so happens if I'm going back to my office and I see the slip and I do it. Otherwise, we don't. We're done, we're on to the next thing, and obviously you are all so busy in your practice, you're not sitting down and doing reviews for all these things. So it's very important to ask and to give them a reminder. Now you can give them a reminder card that has a URL that goes actually right to a Google review. I believe, Mike, that you use an e-card that they can send out to their patients so that they can put a review up. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah, it'll have we have that in the iControls built in, and basically that will say, you know, like us on Facebook, Yelp, all the different review sites, and yeah, it's pretty helpful.
Excellent.
So just to pause real quick, I know we're having a few people say that they're having some difficulties hearing, so I'm not sure if maybe we can get the volume increased a little bit.
Yeah. Let me see if I can turn that off just a bit. Bear with me. Bear with me one moment. Is that better? Please let Mike know if that's better. Can everybody hear me a little bit better now?
Yeah, if everyone can Okay, it does seem, okay, it does look like it's a
Okay,
little bit
cool.
better. Thank you, I
Turn that
appreciate
up.
that.
Oh, no, no problem. Just that's why I asked, because I can't
No
see
problem.
it. So again, when you're emailing, if you're emailing patients, I mean, whenever you have the opportunity to ask them for a review and obviously thank them for taking the time. Now, one of the things you don't want to do is put up reviews for your patients. You don't want to write in your words. You want them to go onto the site and write it in their words. And you don't really want to pressure them to have, you know, an iPad or a laptop right there, and, you know, before you can leave the office, you need to do this. That doesn't really work so well. If they do it on their own tablet or phone, that's something else. No pressure in this. It's just, hey, we really appreciate it. You said you're feeling better when you walked out of the office. We'd love for you to help us out and do a review. And that's enough. Now, I'm going to put this here with a caveat. Google does warn against fake reviews and offering any kind of an incentive. And I don't think that most of you do that in your business, offer an incentive. But I don't know how Google would find out that you did this. But in any case, I need to tell you from a compliance standpoint, they do frown upon that. Now, testimonials on social media is, again, that we're back to that little bit of a different animal. And patients will often agree to have you take a picture and have them say, you know, so-and-so feels great after leaving our office. So-and-so's back feels better. So-and-so just left with, you know, a great cleaning on their teeth. If they're talking about a dentist, if we're talking about an optometrist, if we're talking about a veterinarian, people love to share. And most people will, because most people are accustomed to that using their phones, their smartphones. One of the things we do want to be sure about, though, is we want to be sure that we have a release for people. And we can take a picture of people once we have a release. We can ask the patient to also share it on their Facebook page. So if it's going up on the practice Facebook page, hey, would you be kind enough to share this on your page so that your people, your friends, know that you were here, and of course you want to thank them for doing that. We have video testimonials as well. Video testimonials are great. There's no question that you want to keep them between 30 and 60 seconds. And remember that a lot of people do not like to be in front of the camera. You never want to intimidate or force anyone or make anybody feel bad if they don't want to do a short video. You will have those people who say, sure, no problem. You know, don't script it. Don't say, can you please say this, 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 and this. What you may want to do is have a standard little handout that has 2 or 3 questions on it, and just say, hey, these are the things we're going to ask you. We don't want to script it. We just want to kind of give you a heads up of what we're doing. Or if it's just a matter of them walking out and they feel great, hey, do you have 30 seconds? We'll do a real quick video. And of course, you want to make sure that you have a comfortable place and good lighting. You don't need to be a professional videographer, and you don't need to go out and spend a fortune on equipment. In fact, these days, most of the smartphones will do a pretty good job, or video camera, small video camera. Sometimes it's nice to just set it on a tripod. You want to have it in a section in a private room or a separate area where the lighting is good and people feel comfortable. That's really important, that people feel comfortable. Remember to have a release. You want to have a release for everything you're doing that you're putting up with a patient's physical, you know, their face, their video, or a written text testimonial. And I'm going to stop here for a minute. And Mike, would you be kind enough to do a poll question and ask our audience how many people use a release?
Sure. So feel free to answer yes or no. Who has a release for written or video testimonials? And we'll go ahead and give it about a minute. Very close race.
Okay. And the winner
So
is?
we're almost done. We got a few people still locking in votes. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and close the poll. About 55% said no. 45% said yes, they do have a release.
Well, excellent that we have so many people, 45%,
Yeah.
that are using a release. I might add to please have it checked over by an attorney. Don't spend a fortune. If you have one written, and before I say that, let's move on so you'll see why I mentioned that. You can go to the web and pick up certain releases. Now, this is for UCLA Healthcare. So depending on what practice, well, obviously what type of practice you have, this may or may not be appropriate. But these things are available on the web, which can save you from actually having an attorney write the whole thing, merely review it to make sure that it meets your state laws, as well of course, any HIPAA guidelines and any other federal guidelines that we need to meet. So this actually comes off, as you can see, a chiropractic website. It doesn't come off of the American Chiropractic Association. I'll show you in a moment where it comes off of. But we have here a testimonial release form. We have a photo testimonial release form. Again, so different for texting. And when I say text here, I don't mean texting. I mean a written testimonial. And a photo release. And we have a video release. Now, if you want to make a note, and you will get a copy of this, as Mike pointed out, this is on a website called chiropracticpr.com/blog. And you'll see here that they have a very strong disclaimer advising that you do check for your own circumstances, for your own state laws, but it certainly will give you a guideline as to, for those of you using a release, or not using a release, these will certainly give you a guideline of what to follow. The ADA recommends seeking advice of an attorney. The Federal Trade Commission, now this is about advertising, this is about marketing, and the reason I put this slide in is just to remember that what you say must be true when you advertise. You can use something called try it, you'll like it, 70% do, makes an objective claim about how many like it. You don't want to ever do a bait and switch here, and I'm sure you all know that. You don't want to use silly claims, obvious hype. You basically have to follow the same guidelines as any advertising for the Federal Trade Commission. So just bear that in mind when you're doing advertising. Don't go overboard. Don't make claims that you really, really can't substantiate. There's plenty of things you can say without having to do that, especially now in the era of testimonials and reviews, because as we looked at initially, those are the ones that are going to have the most impact. Not what you say, but what other people say, consumer to consumer, patient to patient. Much more important than whatever you're putting out there as the practice as far as advertising. Now, we talk about reviews and we talk about asking people for reviews. And the good news is that most reviews online are positive. Most people who write a review write a positive review. And you can see here by some of these stats, it is important to know what people are saying about your practice. It's very important to understand where you may need to make an improvement. If you find that over and over and over again, people are saying something that is of a concern, maybe they're waiting too long, maybe the person answering the phone is less than, shall we say, friendly. These are things you want to know. And these are things that people will put in, even if they write a positive review. The care is awesome. You know, I've been going to this dentist for 5 years. I absolutely love the hygienist. I absolutely love the dentist. My only concern here is the receptionist is simply not friendly. I mean, I have no idea if that's happening in your office or not, but that would be the kind of thing you'd want to know about. And people might put that on a review and not actually say anything to you in the office because they don't want to, but they'll put it down when they're writing. So it's important to know what's going on with your practice. And here, I'm going to ask Mike if he would do one more quick poll with you guys, because this is kind of important. And here's the question. How many of you have actually written guidelines for your patients, letting them know how you will communicate with them?
Go ahead and feel free to answer yes or no if possible. We'll give it about a minute. Okay, almost there, about halfway done. Okay, it's looking pretty one-sided. So we'll go ahead and close the poll now. We've got about 3/4 of the people here. So 100% said no.
Okay, let's talk about this one for a minute. Or let me talk about this one for a minute. This is really, understand that you obviously have to abide by HIPAA guidelines. And if there are veterinarians on the call, which I know there are, bear with us because you do not follow the same HIPAA guidelines. Although, as I mentioned on calls when we do veterinarians, you do want to check your state laws. California has some laws for veterinarians in regard to what they can and cannot post in regard to the client and the owner, or the patient and the owner. But that caveat being said, everybody else is abiding by HIPAA guidelines. And part of it is the separation here between your professional life and your personal life, as we mentioned. But your patients don't necessarily know that. And it gets more complicated when you have a friend or a neighbor for years who then becomes a patient, or a patient who then becomes a friend or a neighbor. These things get muddled, and the area gets very gray. So it's important to let your patients know how you will communicate with them and what communication you feel is appropriate. And it's not necessary to make a big deal about this. It can be a simple one-pager with your intake forms that simply lets them know how they should connect with you. Are you going to accept texts from your patients? And here again we have the issue of encrypted cell phones and HIPAA. Are you going to accept emails, personal emails to you from your patients? Okay? Are you going to accept them as a friend on Facebook? Or are you going to direct them over to your practice page, which I hope you all have, and if not, when we get off this call, you definitely want to talk to Mike at iMatrix to take care of that for you. But again, you're just kind of setting the guidelines and letting them know, first of all, how you will communicate with them, what's the best way to communicate with them. And you're also reminding them to keep their private information private, their health information. They should not be posting personal health information online. It really shouldn't go through unencrypted emails. And it definitely shouldn't go through unencrypted texts. And nobody's walking around with an encrypted cell phone. You guys might be, to communicate with your staff or with doctor to doctor, but the public isn't walking around with encrypted cell phones. You also want to remind them to respect others' privacy. So what does this mean? They're sitting in a waiting room, and they snap a picture of a patient who's also waiting in the waiting room. Why? Who knows? Maybe they like their hair. Maybe they like the nail color. Maybe they think they look weird, and they post that up. Now they've disrespected someone else's privacy. Now, look, you can't control the public, obviously. But I think it's going to be important that you can show that you've made an effort to educate people. Remind people to be courteous and respectful when posting. That may sound crazy, but common sense really seems to have sort of gone on vacation in many of these instances. I'm sure you're aware of that. And it's not a bad idea to post a sign like this up in your office. You know, we welcome you to engage with us on social media and our website. Please do not disclose any personal information, and remember to respect the privacy of others. Thank you. And of course, also letting people know not to use cell phones in your office. And we talk about that in other sessions where you never want to talk to a patient while they're on their cell phone because there's a gray area as to whether there's a third party present on that call. So this is not to make anybody paranoid. Social media is absolutely awesome. I mean, it gives you the ability to build a loyal community that is going to refer your practice over and over and over again. It also becomes a resource where people can learn about what other people are saying. It's a resource for you to educate the public, to remind them when it's time to come in for XYZ. Seasonal things, things with kids, whatever the case may be, specials you might be running in your office. It is absolutely essential, and it's essential for your search engine optimization because Google is taking such a close look at social media, which is why when you Google something now, what comes up? LinkedIn page, Facebook page, Twitter page, Google Plus page, all of that. So again, it doesn't hurt, and that's why I spent a few minutes on this one, to do something to educate your patients and to educate the public. And then we'll move on from that. So managing your online reputation. Google Alerts are very important for managing your online reputation. You want to make sure that, and we're going to look at a screen in a moment or two. We're going to talk more about Google Alerts. You also want to make sure your LinkedIn profile is absolutely complete and optimized. And again, this is one of the biggest things we do with our practice professionals and all of our professionals. Most people's LinkedIn profiles are not optimized. What do I mean by optimized? It's completely filled out with keywords. The summary is built appropriately with keywords, so on and so forth. That is where people are going to go to check you out. And even if they don't actually go to LinkedIn to check you out, chances are your LinkedIn profile is going to come up first when they go to Google. And if it looks like crap, then that's the impression that they're going to get. Doesn't mean you're a bad practitioner. It means, remember, everything is perception. Perception, perception. And LinkedIn is the most professional place that people will go. Think of it as your CV online, your resume online. It's also a place where you can do a lot of business with strategic partners, with getting referrals, and obviously with getting patients and clients. So something to keep in mind. As I said, we would mention also and talk more in depth about Google Alerts. This allows you to monitor the web. And you, first of all, set up a Google Alert for any of the doctors in the practice. You simply go to Google and put in Google Alerts. It's free. And you can set up as many as you want. I would recommend getting a daily digest, not as the emails come in, because you'll go crazy. And somebody in your office is probably going to get this, or you have it go to an info at or doctor at, and someone of your staff will be able to comb through those emails. Set up a Google Alert for the practice name. You want to know if your practice name is hitting the web. Good or bad, you want to be alerted to this. And as I said, request a daily digest. This is another great thing to do when you, and I know iMatrix, if you're using some of their programs, they will actually post on social media for you. They will do supplemental posting for you, which is awesome. And then that leaves you to do the remainder of the posting because you have to have some intimate involvement with your posting. Well, Google Alerts can give you articles written by other professionals that you can post up so long as there's a share button. And as I always say, if someone wrote a blog or there's an article up there written by someone else in your profession and they're not around the corner, they're in another state, another part of the country, go ahead. If they have a share button, go ahead and share it and put your own comments saying, this is a really cool article, because you're in a local business. So you're going to get the local patient, the local client. But there's absolutely no reason to not go ahead and post somebody else's, and you never know. You may establish a strategic relationship with that person. And respond in a timely fashion with a thank you if, and I'm trying to figure out what I was talking about there. I think I meant to put that a little bit later. But because you're going to get stuff with Google Alerts, and I think what I'm talking about here is if something comes up with your practice or your name, you do want to send a thank you to whoever that was that may have written a blog or written something about your practice. Okay, these are the ones that aren't fun, and usually they're not the ones we get. Usually we get positive ones, but you know, you can't please everybody, and we know that, and we're not going to please everybody. A negative review can be one of the most positive things for your public relations, but it's important to treat it in the proper way. First of all, don't delete it. The first instinct of everybody is to, whether it's a review or whether it's a post on social media, the immediate response is to delete it. Don't delete it. The only time I say to delete it if it's completely wacko. I mean, if it's an advertisement for a diet product, if it's somebody tagged you or the business in something that has absolutely nothing to do with you, or the person is simply on a inappropriate rant. That kind of thing is really not appropriate. Make sure, and I think that iMatrix does this when they set up your Facebook page, make sure the profanity setting is set to strong on all of your Facebook pages. If somebody's going off the wall with four-letter language and all that kind of stuff, I might even say, would you please take this offline, give your phone number. I'm sorry, we're going to have to delete this review. We don't appreciate this type of language. And another thing, in your info part of your Facebook page, it doesn't hurt to say, we would appreciate everybody using appropriate language and respecting everyone else. You know, we want you to post, but we want you to be respectful. But who in your office is going to be responsible for responding to this? You may not have the time, but training of your staff. I can't tell you how important that is, so that they understand, first of all, that this should be responded to in a timely fashion. It should be brought to your attention, but how should they respond? You always want a person for bringing the issue to your attention. It can be something like, you know, the last 3 times I was in your office, I waited 45 minutes. That's simply unacceptable. I'm going to start sending you a bill for my time. Okay. Stuff happens, right? It shouldn't happen the last 3 times, but stuff happens, even once, and people will complain. And remember, they may not complain to you as much as though now they have a vehicle to go public. So you want to thank them for bringing the issue to your attention. You want to assure them that you are committed to every single person having a positive experience. However, sometimes things happen, and you are looking into the situation immediately to rectify it and make sure that it does not happen again. And again, thank you so much for bringing this to our attention. We would love to have a conversation with you offline. Would you call us, or would you send us a private message with a phone number where we may reach you, or an email? Now, if it's a patient, you're obviously going to have that information, but ask them. Maybe it's a patient who walked out because something just, whatever, turn them off. Respond, respond, respond. When someone else sees that you took the time, the practice took the time to respond to a negative post, or review for that matter, and say thank you, and say that, you know, we appreciate you bringing this to our attention. We are rectifying the situation. In fact, we'd like to talk to you more. Would you kindly give us a call? May we call you? Please send us a private message, or get with your phone number. It can go a long way into having other people look at that and say, wow, they obviously care. Not only do they care, but they're obviously paying attention to their social media. They just don't have stuff being thrown up here, tossed up here. Just post that, post that, post that. We don't care if anybody responds. We're not paying attention. It's extremely important that your staff be trained and understand what to do with a negative response. It can be huge for your practice. And this is what I just said. But this is some things I didn't say. Never argue or become defensive with responding online. Okay? That's something that I want to reiterate here. Do not get into a pissing contest. Do not let your staff get into a pissing contest. I've seen chiropractors get things like, I cannot believe how expensive you are. I cannot believe that my insurance, blah, 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 blah. Don't argue. Don't be defensive. Ask them if you can take it offline. Say, I understand you're frustrated. I appreciate you bringing this to our attention. What can we do to rectify the situation? What can we do to help? Okay? Now, sometimes, and this happened because I'm a Rotarian and PR chair for our district, there's one person in particular former Rotarian in our district who was repeatedly going on our district Facebook page and writing the most hateful things. All kinds of things about Rotary. Well, those got deleted, and she got blocked. I mean, you're not going to put up with that kind of stuff. But legitimate concerns, absolutely go ahead and address them. Facebook check-ins. As I mentioned earlier, Facebook went to the graph search, and it's really important for people to check in at your practice because it will let everybody connected with them know that they were there. And if they're physically there, they're obviously giving a testimonial. I mean, what were they doing in your office? They were obviously visiting your practice. Unless they were dropping off something, chances are they're a patient and they were there to see you. The graph search lets people search for things now. Okay, so dental offices in Las Vegas visited by my friends. Not just liked by my friends, you notice the difference here, but visited by my friends. So I'm not just bringing up dental practices that my friends click the like on their business page. I'm actually asking Facebook to tell me where my friends visited. So they were physically there because that's how you check in on your phone, on your smartphone, on Facebook, the check-in button. So now it actually tells me who some of these people are. And I know these people. Now granted, I am not personally friends with every person I'm connected to on Facebook. But as I look down this list, there's one or more names that I personally know. All I have to do is pick up the phone or click on their name and shoot them a Facebook message that says, hey, I see that you were at, hey Rodney, I see you were at Enhanced Dental. Do you really like them? How long have you been using them? Rodney says, yeah, they're awesome. I check in every time I go. Great. I'm looking for a dentist. I'm going to give him a call. I'll let him know that you referred him. This is extremely important. Facebook had this over a year ago. For those of us that were on the beta test, they've now rolled it out throughout the United States. What it does is it keeps people on Facebook longer. And remember that thing about 92% of people, when they get a review from someone they know, they obviously want to keep people off Google. So they want to say, yeah, you can go to Google and get a review, but we're going to give you something that's actually people you know. Extremely important. So we ask people to check in. And here again, I did the same thing with chiropractic. Chiropractors in Las Vegas visited by my friends. And again, I'm getting names. And I'm going to have your attention drawn to West Valley Chiropractic for a moment, the second one down. I've been telling him to fix that picture so that it's clear and looks professional. And again, if you're working with iMatrix, you'll never have that problem. You'll always look professional. Very important, though, when things come up to look professional. If you look at Hampton Chiropractic, nice picture, but if I'm seeing that as a thumbnail on the Facebook news feed or /homepage, I have absolutely no idea what that is. I mean, I know what the picture is, but there is no branding there for the name of the chiropractic at all. They're not branding themselves at all when people see that on the news feed. So think about these things. Think about the branding. And I said, when you work with iMatrix, you don't have that issue. Smartphones. We're talking about checking in. 56% of the American public has a smartphone. It's 91 or 92% have a cell phone. Smartphone growth is going through the roof. People are using it, and they're using it for all kinds of things. As you know, they're using it for their GPS, they're using it for Facebook, they're using it for internet, they're using it for email, they're using it for everything. The least thing they're using it for these days is talking. As many of you may know, texting has become just extremely prevalent in the business world as well as in the personal world. And again, as I mentioned earlier, please don't text, and please don't have your staff texting things. I was at a conference. I was speaking yesterday in Costa Mesa, and a woman I was sitting next to said that she got a text message from her father's nurse, who's in a nursing home. And I said to her, did the nurse describe your father's condition? And she said, yes. And then she looked at me, and she runs a nonprofit. She looked at me and she said, oh my gosh, HIPAA. And I said, that's right. And she said, well, my dad wants me to know his condition. I said, I'm sure he does, but I'm sure he wouldn't want everybody to know it if somebody found your cell phone. What she should do is text you and say, can you talk for a few minutes? So please, if you're not using it, and there are companies that you can do encrypted, I'm sure you know this, to have your cell phones encrypted, but please let your staff know. If they need to reach you and they're texting you, they should never be sending patient information over the text. Cell phones get lost every single day, okay? And that is a HIPAA violation. So I just mentioned that here. So we talked about checking in, so how are we going to do that? We can ask them a friendly reminder when they come in. We can have a little sign up. Don't force anybody, because again, not everybody may want everybody to know they're there. Okay, so it's a privacy issue. But a lot of people will just whip out their phone if they see a sign saying, hey, do us a favor and check in. They'll whip out their phone and they'll do it. When you send email newsletters, if iMatrix is sending things out for you, remind people to check in when they come into the office. That's all. It's a friendly thing. If they're loyal patients, they will do it. And people are playing with these things all the time. If you have a big sign up when they walk in the door, don't take your cell phone out in the office, they may not. So you don't want them talking on their cell phone, but you do want them checking in. Just bear that in mind. And of course, again, I repeat, never insist, never make anybody feel bad. If they say, no thanks, I'd rather not. Okay, fine. And not everybody will have a smartphone. And not everybody will have Facebook on their phone. Okay, but a good percentage of people will. And that will help you be found for that visiting question on the graph search. Okay, blogging, another subject, was very, very, in the game about 5 years ago, and then social media kind of came in, and everybody just talks about social media. And as you know, social media is not the end-all for your practice. You still have to email market. You still have to get out to the public. Depending on your demographic, you may do some direct mail. Depending on your demographic, if you do, you definitely want to combine it with email marketing and social media marketing. You want all of these things to be integrated. And as I said, iMatrix will take care of sending out, I believe, Mike, it's 2 newsletters a month.
Yeah, once every 2 weeks.
That's wonderful. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And you also have the ability, when they set up your site for you, to do your own blogging. And I would suggest that. Maybe once a week, maybe once every other week. This is written in your voice. You can educate. You can outsource this to a ghostwriter, but you should approve everything. We're not asking you to write War and Peace here. It's 350 to 500 words, maybe 600 if, talk about what's going on in the field. Talk about new research. And by the way, these are great things to connect over to your LinkedIn profile. So you start to become the expert in your field when other people start looking at you that way in your profession and in symbiotic professions as well. Joe to read a post and recognize that it was Aunt Sally that somebody was talking about, even though her name was never mentioned. So be careful with that. General medical information. Now here's something you can do. You can discuss inaccurate information that you find online. There's all kinds of stuff out there. It seems every day the public is getting bombarded with what they should and shouldn't do on various topics relating to your professions. Go ahead and become a trusted resource. Don't bash anybody, but go ahead and clarify. And of course, as I mentioned, educate other members of your profession. Using online forums, another thing. Make sure your website is HIPAA compliant. Of course, as I mentioned, if you work with iMatrix, that's never an issue. This study tells us that 81% of patients would like to fill out forms online. That's probably gone up since 2011. Make sure that these forms are HIPAA compliant, okay? And as I said, if you deal with iMatrix, not an issue. And to reiterate again, separating your personal and professional life. I do not recommend you accept friends on your personal Facebook page, and you want to check those privacy settings. You may feel differently, and there may be some people, as I said, that were friends of yours and then became patients. I mean, some of this is very gray. It's not a hard line. Decide whether you want your staff friending patients, okay? Because what you can do when you can send a message and just say, please connect with us on our business page, on our practice page. If you are rolling your Facebook to Twitter, if you personally have a Facebook page that you keep relatively private, but your Twitter profile and your tweets are public, when you roll them over, they become public. So just bear that in mind. The platforms are all different. They all have different privacy, and I did a presentation in California, a live presentation yesterday, and we went through some of the different privacy ways that the different platforms look at this. So remember that Twitter is by and large a public feed, whereas you can keep your Facebook page relatively private. And that's what we're talking about anyway. And then beyond all of that, never assume that anything online won't become public. When people say to me, I don't want to get involved in this social media stuff because I don't want people to know what's going on in my life, I'm very sorry to disappoint you, but that ship has sailed. So yes, social media makes it easier, and long before the NSA story came out, the Internet's been here. Keeping things private to some extent these days, it's really not that easy, and most of us don't have anything to hide. But the value of using social media far outweighs the paranoia. It's just like anything. You have to use it appropriately. So again, I mention this because people forget. I tell people don't post anything political, don't post anything religious. But remember, it's not just what you post, it's what you like and what you comment on. Stay away from really controversial topics because you will alienate people. Unless you only want to deal with people who feel the same way as you, okay? So I mention that, and I say to people, sports is great. If I'm a Giant fan, which I am, and you're a Dallas Cowboy fan, that's not going to stop me from doing business with you. In fact, it might make it more fun. I always say, unless you're a Red Sox fan, but I'm kidding. Sports is great. Politics, now I'm not talking about politics where you're informing the public or other professionals about legislative action relating to your field. That's different. I'm talking about the political bashing that goes on social media. Stay away from it. And this one last thing, this is a company that I work very closely with. They're out of the UK. And if you go to my website, which is right there, you'll see that banner. It will give you an extended free trial. It will allow you to back up your social media on your computer. They do not store it. It will be on your computer. And it's a wonderful way to keep all your stuff. You can see I have my personal and my business page up there. I have a Rotary District page up there because I'm an admin. It will allow you to keep your pictures, your comments, your likes, your LinkedIn profile, your Twitter. Two reasons for that. One, it's a running history of your life, basically, and your business. And two, from a compliance standpoint, you have a record of everything. Remember, all this stuff is admissible in court. And on this webinar, we're not going through the legal ramifications with employees and employers, but it's not a bad idea to have this stuff. And remember, it's backed up on your computer, okay? It's not stored by social safe. So again, if you go to my website and click that, you'll get an extended free trial, and then you can see it's very inexpensive anyway to do it. And now we have questions.
Awesome.
So I thank you.
So let me go ahead and get a few. I know got about 10 minutes or so. If we go over 5 minutes or so, that's fine as well. But again, if anyone's not able to stay for the rest, we are having this recorded. We will be sending it to all of you, so no worries there. The first question I have is, does the release have to be signed, or is oral release sufficient?
Oh, no, I would definitely have it signed. And again, check with an attorney, but I would absolutely positively have a file with that. And, what you can do, I don't expect you to go ahead and redo all your intake forms. Just do separate sheets for the release. if you're going to have people do a video. Those video ones that were up there, they're only one page, but you want to have it. And you may be able to incorporate video and content into one. Take a look at that website and then just have an attorney review it to make sure you're abiding by your state laws as well. Good question.
Awesome. How many review sites should we refer any one patient to?
Well, I would say, and Mike, you can weigh in on this one, Yelp and Google and Angie's List are probably the three.
Agreed. Yep.
And as I said, working with iMatrix, the only one I think that would be an extra would be Angie's List. I wouldn't go crazy. Don't give people a list of a dozen. They're not going to do it.
Exactly. Yeah, you don't want to overwhelm them. I would recommend.
Get them to go to Google. Get them to go to Google.
Yeah. Yeah, it does definitely help out. I know as well as with Google's algorithm, it does help when someone has a buying decision if they see that you have a certain amount of reviews along with your ranking as well. But again, like Debbie said, Angie's List is very, very popular. Yelp as well. I would definitely recommend not doing too many, probably just doing a few, and the ones that count are probably the ones that matter. So we do have actually a couple questions that are kind of tied into that as well. One is a really good question that I know I have when I was an account manager, had questions like this as well. So regarding anonymous negative reviews on other sites, so they don't have a name to it, maybe there's no way of contacting them. Is it worth replying to these if they're anonymous? How do you handle these more fringe sites that nonetheless come up high on the Google search?
I would respond to every negative review, very simply. Thank you for bringing this to our attention. We'd love to discuss this with you, but we don't know who you are. Why don't you give us a call and here's a phone? I mean, honestly, if people are not going to, and if a lot of people do anonymous reviews, that's all you can say. But at least people know you saw it and you responded. You didn't simply ignore it. Okay? I don't know how many of you are aware of what happened with Red Lobster last week, but if you Google it, Google Red Lobster on social media, Google Red Lobster and issue. We don't have time to go into it, but you can see what happens with negative publicity. And I went onto their Facebook page and posted, they took it off. I didn't post a negative thing, I just questioned it. No comment, just took it off. Put another one, no comment, just took it off. You want to show people, even if it's anonymous, and don't write a novel. Thanks very much for bringing this to our attention. We'd love to rectify it, but we don't know how to get in touch with you. Give us a call. And then people see that you went and took the 2 minutes to write that, and chances are the person's not going to do anything because they're anonymous.
Awesome.
So another great question. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. Let's see, another one. Regarding communication policy, does this mean that when a patient writes a review or testimonial, they should not mention the condition they came to see me for? Example, low back pain.
Well, that's their writing it. I wouldn't want them to go into too much detail about condition, but if they want to say they simply had low back pain and they came into your office and now they're feeling great, that's perfectly okay. You're not going to write that, but they can. But I would still encourage them not to go nuts on a Facebook page about describing in detail all of their physicality. But something like that, no problem. I had low back pain. I went to see my chiropractor. I'm assuming it was the chiropractor and the dentist who fixed the low back pain, and, I feel wonderful. No problem with that at all.
Awesome. All right. Got a few more popping in here. Can release be part of a new client form? Do we need to release for animal-only pics?
There's the veterinarian. Yes, it can be part of an intake form, and check with your state. California has some rules for veterinarians. Yeah. So just Google. If you want, I couldn't go through every single state, but when I was doing the research for veterinarians, I did find that California has some rules about putting pictures up and having the owner acknowledge, because obviously the patient is the animal and is not going to sign a form. So, yeah, just check into that. California, I believe Ohio may have had something. There weren't many, but just check into it and make sure that you're not stepping grounds. And for the veterinarians out there, social media is an absolute win-win for you. I mean, people love to put pictures of their pets. So go
I can attest to that.
Go for it. I mean, go for it. Even use Pinterest. Go for it. It's an awesome, awesome vehicle for veterinarians.
Yeah, everyone loves pictures of pets. I don't think there's anyone that
Absolutely.
doesn't like a
You
picture
know,
of a
have them
puppy.
dress their pets up for Halloween and stuff like that. I mean, whatever you want to do. People go crazy. Thank you for that.
Awesome. Yeah. Now here's a question I can have some input on as well, but I'm going to go ahead and I'll leave it to you, and I'll put my input in after. What is the criteria Yelp uses when deciding to filter patient reviews? Is there anything that can be done to avoid reviews from being filtered?
Mike, I'm going to let you take that one.
Okay, so the way that Yelp works is Yelp does have this filter machine, is kind of like what they call it, and it's fairly good. Sometimes it seems to work against you, I guess, if there's a lot of good reviews that come in. But what happens is if someone isn't considered a Yelper or someone that consistently Yelps, if they're a first-time Yelper, if they maybe just registered that one time, they really like your service, they've never been on Yelp, and they register for the first time, they left a review, more than likely that review is probably going to be filtered because of the fact that their filter protocol or their filter algorithm will consider that to be possibly fake, just because it's not someone that is credible in the Yelp, I guess, community, and someone that doesn't leave a lot of reviews or whatnot. Now, I have seen a lot of reviews that go through that are good reviews that have only been one review, and they've been sticky, they've stuck, and that's good. But there are a lot of good instances where, you know, maybe you might have that negative review that just really kind of bashes the practice, and the filter filters it out. So sometimes it's a win-win, sometimes it's not, but it is one of those things where Yelp is pretty much the only case with that. Now, when it comes to Google, if that's the case and you're getting a lot of reviews on Yelp that are being filtered, possibly try to, you know, refer people to Google or, you know, like Debbie said, Angie's List. And I know that they don't have that same filter.
And I will, thank you, Mike, and thank you for that question. And I will let you know, because one of my clients is an author. Amazon does the same thing. They want you to be a regular customer of Amazon and a regular reviewer and a member. And sometimes they won't even keep reviews up there if you're not. So we learned that with Amazon as well. So thank you. I've learned something today about Yelp. And you
Yeah,
learned something about Amazon.
yeah, essentially it's for the protection of the practice, because a lot of times you're going to get a lot more negative reviews that are just one review each. But, you know, again, there are casualties of war, I guess you can say, and some of the good reviews might happen that way as well. But I know there's a second part of that question as far as Yelp eliminating chiropractic reviews. Is this true? Haven't heard anything about that. I don't see why they would go towards one industry as opposed to the other ones. So I personally haven't heard anything. I'm not sure if Debbie, if you've heard anything about that.
I have not. I mean, I know that there's still controversy about attorneys and reviews, but no, I have not. I have not heard that about chiropractors. I haven't seen that come across anywhere. And again, maybe I don't know that that could be a state-by-state thing. These things are, you know, you have federal, you have state, so sometimes it's unclear where it's coming from.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Got two more questions here, it looks like. Let's see. If a client posts their pet's name on our Facebook testimonials, is that considered too much personal info?
No. If the client, remember, the client's posting it, and it's, no, absolutely not, and they will.
So anytime a client posts, it's their consent, right?
Yeah, if the client is posting it, it's fine. I mean, it's their consent. The main thing is, first of all, nobody wants to hear anybody's particular health concerns on Facebook, unless it's something like low back pain. But we don't want anybody to go into the details of the surgery that they had on social media. And the other thing is, you never want somebody posting about somebody else. You want them to respect someone else's privacy. So thank you for that question.
Awesome. Okay. Well, it looks like that's about it on the questions. We are out of time, but I did want to, again, say thank you, Debbie, for presenting this. It was a very insightful webinar. Again, if anyone has any kind of questions, you can feel free to, go to please go to dowecomply.com. Definitely check it out,
and I will,
even if you don't have questions.
And I will get, my email is simply Debbie, D-E-B-B-I-E, @dowecomply.com. I do send out a weekly social media tip email. If you're interested in receiving it, just shoot me an email that says, I'd like to receive it, so I don't break any email laws. And but it is just Debbie @dowecomply.com. And I thank you guys for taking the time for joining us, and I thank you, Mike, and iMatrix very much.
Yeah, thank you. You guys have a wonderful day.